All right, so it's recording, and I'll post this. I'll show you where I posted it in a moment. Let's do Canvas. All right, log in already. I usually try to do all this before class starts. Did I get that right? Okay, and we are 224. They've got my fall quarter stuff in there too. All right, and let's make this a little bigger. Go to the syllabus, and we'll start. Go to the syllabus. All right. As I said, we're still quite a bit short of people, but that's okay. So this is ITC 224. Okay, come down. I need to lower the lights just a there. And it's kind of a misnomer for the title these days. It's database programming. And I want to shut the door, but there's so many people out here. No. Okay. All right. So in the beginning, when I did this course, it was database programming, in that we would write a front end to a database, right? Usually in those days, it was either Visual Basic or C#. I don't do that anymore, and the reason why I don't do that anymore is that there actually aren't that many jobs for that, at least coming out of a community college, right? So what I've switched it to, and what we will be looking at mostly, are visualization, data visualization with reporting, and exporting and importing, and building. We'll build a data warehouse and look a little bit at the analytics for that. All right, and there are more jobs for that. I mean, that's actually where people tend to get their work at first. So rather than actual programming, it's more those things. Does that make sense? All right, so technically we go from 9:40 to 12:30. It's a hybrid, and the way I'm going to do a hybrid is that I'm going to make the lab time pretty much open lab, right? So when you come in here, you should be able to just do the work. You can also do it at home, and what I'm going to do or attempt to do is to provide you with lots of videos and documentation and stuff, so that when you come here, you have an idea of what you're going to do. Does that make sense? And it certainly can help you when you're in class here. That's the whole point of having the lab here.
So I think we're going to do this on Tuesday, just Tuesday alone.
Yes, although as I said, you could do it at home and you wouldn't even have to come to the lab, although you're always welcome for the lab. Does that make sense? This is a long time, particularly if you're taking both classes. You know, it's like 5 hours, 6 hours. As a lab, as an open lab, you can come and go as you want, basically. So you aren't bound here for 6 hours. Now, we'll talk about the software in a second. You can do this all on your own machine, you know, or you can do it here on these machines. So and it should be fairly machine agnostic. Everything that we have will work on a Mac. It will work on Windows. Not everything will work on Linux. I don't know if anyone's running Linux. I have it on my laptop. The Tableau does not have a Linux version, which we'll talk about.
Steve, will there be a lecture component, or just this is just lab?
But just lab for the most part. If there is a lecture, I will alert you, right? So what the lectures are going to be are videos, right? And then there will be documents that I provide too.
Videos you post.
What?
Videos you do?
Yeah, videos I do. I don't know. There might be, particularly for Tableau parts, there's probably videos on other platforms, YouTube that others have done. Probably in the LinkedIn videos, there might be some.
They have a training program too.
Yeah, and they do have a training program, which you can take advantage of. I'll tell you how to get the Tableau in a bit. All right, so we're going to do importing and exporting from databases. We're going to do database-driven reports. We'll do some business intelligence solutions. There is some SQL in this class. I mean, using SQL, you know, to create the queries that you're going to build reports from. Building the data warehouse takes a fair amount of SQL, but I will give you examples that are pretty close to what you need to do. So if you're not expert at SQL, you can still do that. So you'd asked about NoSQL. I hadn't planned on that, but it's possible that there will be time. If not in this class, then in the next class where we could set up a Mongo. Or Mongo is the only one I know with any depth. So, but we could set up some databases. I will show you some stuff, and I had thought about setting up Mongo, but it just seemed like an awful lot to ask of people, because in the one of the things that we will export here and import is JSON, which is the format for most NoSQL databases. Okay. Most of you know me. I might do it with the roster later. As I said, though, at least half the people are not here. My office is right across the hall. So this summer, my office hours will be on Wednesdays. That has to change. I have classes. Yeah. I don't know why I put 10 a.m. But it'll be more like 1, which is what it was supposed to be, 1 till maybe 3 or 4. So I guess I haven't changed that yet. But I will change that because I have classes until 12:30, so I can't do it at that point. But I'll do it from like 1 to 4 on Wednesdays. The exception being tomorrow, because I have a meeting from 1 to 4. But I will be here. You can also make an appointment with me before class. And then again, the open lab time, if you need things, we can always, if it's something you don't want to talk in front of everyone, we can always step over to my office for a few minutes during the lab time too. I generally will not, if I can avoid it, be here on Monday or Thursday or Friday. I live a long ways out of town, and it's nice not to have to commute in every day. That being said, if there's a desperate need, I'll figure it out. We can do something. My email is like everybody's, steven.conger@seattlecolleges.edu. The only thing that throws people is I usually go by Steve, not Steven, but formally it's Steven. So in the email, you need the N. I have a website. It's not particularly relevant to this class. At things that are relevant, though, at the very top here, there is a blog, and there are YouTube videos. I also have links to a lot of these in the assignments and in the modules. But like if I go to the YouTube videos, there aren't a lot yet, but I'll be making more. There are some like basic XML and JSON, the import and export. I think they're set up for being due next class time. I didn't set up anything for today because who knows what we're going to get done today. It's always a crapshoot as to what the machines are like on the first day of class. And then there's also an import and export the CSV, which is comma separated values. So
Is that like in which video we should watch first, or?
So the assignments, as I said, when we look at the assignments, they relate directly to an assignment. And I will make more of these. Sometimes on Wednesday afternoons, if you guys aren't needing things, I'll probably be making videos. I will also make some at home, although I want to warn you, the ones I make at home will be on Linux. And so they'll look a little different. Not a lot different, but a little. So there'll be more videos there. I actually got rid of all the old ones. This summer is the first time I'm going to try to teach this using PostgreSQL. It's a really good database, but in the past I always taught it with SQL Server, which would not have worked on a Mac. Right? It would only work on Windows. And SQL Server is fairly proprietary. It is a major database. It's probably second to Oracle, for that out there. But Postgres is as powerful, I would say, and it's making huge inroads in the recent past. And it's open source and it runs on everything. So that's one of the reasons that I've chosen it. I prefer it much over MySQL. It has a lot more robust security. It has a lot more robust data integrity. I mean, it's just in general a better database system than MySQL. We can talk about that later if you want, about what. So I'm going to go back to the syllabus, and I'll also show you the blog. The parts that are up there right now are for the import and export things. So there's like the code for the queries. Now, this isn't the code for your queries, but for the sample queries that are very close to what you're going to do. Does that make sense? We'll talk about that a little bit more. So there's XML and there's JSON there. Looks like I had posted those before, and then I posted them again separately. Interesting. Okay. But the blog will have sample codes and stuff like that for what we do. So let's go back to the syllabus. Questions on that? Again, I'm going to try to give you everything that you need to do this, and then I will be here to help you do it if you need, right? It is possible, and not necessarily encouraging this because I like to see you guys, but it is quite possible you could do most of this on your own at home just with the videos and stuff. But the lab is here, and even if you don't need the machines here, you can bring your laptop in and just get help, So it's questions so far. I will change my office hours, so 1 to 4 as opposed to that. Let me real quickly do that. And we'll make it till 4. Just so I don't forget to do it, and so that people don't try to, because as I said, I have class till 12:30. What else do we need? So we're going to import complex things. We're going to create some reports, some business intelligence. Now, business intelligence is a huge topic, and we could spend the whole summer on it. So it's mostly just an introduction to that. We're going to do troubleshoot and problem solve. There'll be plenty of that. Looking for that. At the bottom here, so let's do grades. As I said, all of the assignments will be on Canvas, and there isn't a book. As I said, I'm going to try to provide documentation and videos and everything you will need. There is a ton of documentation online for everything, right? If you look. Postgres has a massive documentation site. There are lots of troubleshooting sites. One of the things that I would suggest as you do troubleshooting is, rather than always ask me, maybe start a Canvas forum for the technical issues, because you might get better responses with more people contributing. Does that make sense?
You don't have to buy the database design for Memorial then?
No, it's not part of the. Where are you? That's not mine.
Oh.
That's, I think, Nicole's. Two 26. Not 220 to 226. That's the only one. Did you just register for that?
Yeah, I just registered.
I think somehow you got the wrong number in there. Change that.
I'll have to just go down to registration.
Yeah. Yeah, that's got to be Nicole's class. All right, so what else do I have here? There's additional information. There's the land acknowledgement, Title IX. Equal and equitable opportunity, statement from the president, emergency preparedness, building evacuation, which hopefully we won't have to do. American with Disabilities Act, complaint process, gender bathrooms, a bunch of stuff. I will admit I just copied and pasted that from the post that they gave me, but it's all good information. Okay, so let's look a little bit at the assignments, and we'll talk a little bit about them, and then we will try, my main goal today is to try to get things set up. Well, maybe before we look at the assignments, I could talk a little bit about the software. I'm going to open up a notepad just because I want this video. If I write it on the board, it won't be on the video. Let's change the font to something big. All right, so for the software, there's really just two for this class. There's PostgreSQL, and it comes with PG admin. Okay, so the admin is the front end of it. And we will try to install this today. It's not an assignment here. By the way, those of you that are in the next class, it is an assignment there. So even if we do it here, you can count it as an assignment in the next class. PostgreSQL, and if you've done it on your own machine, you don't have to redo it on the machine, right? If you did it last quarter, you can do that. But those PostgreSQL, PG admin, that's most of what we'll be working with. So this is the database, this is the front end to the database. And I will show you those in a bit. The other thing, with luck, is Tableau. Gotta spell it right.
EAU.
EAU, yes. And Tableau is visualization software. It's made here in Seattle. I just heard on NPR today that they just got bought by another company.
Salesforce.
Salesforce, yeah.
So this is 224?
This is 224.
Back downstairs.
So you can have, now Postgres is free, right? So it's free for anybody. The only thing they ever charge for is if you do the enterprise version and you want support. They charge for support. We're not going to need the support. So, and Postgres will install on any platform. Right? It'll install on Macs. It'll install on Linux. It'll install on Windows. Tableau will install on Mac, and it'll install on Windows. If you go, I will show you in a little bit, you can go to Tableau, and you can go, if you dig deep, you can find their education academic versions. And if you haven't, prove you're a student, they have you send them like your class list or something. You can download a version that's free for a year. It's the full enterprise version, and it's free for a year. And I don't know if they will, for me, they gave me 2 copies. I could put it on 2 different machines. I don't know if that's true, because I did go in as an instructor. I don't know if that's an instructor thing or if that's true for everybody. But you can have a copy of Tableau for free for a year as a student. And it is a marketable skill. There are a lot of jobs looking for Tableau, to develop reports and things like that. And it's a pretty neat program. Those are really the only 2 pieces of software that we need for this class. Does that make sense? There are things that we could do, and we may do, because we may do more things than the assignments have. There are things we could do with Python. It might be fun to create a little Python program that transfers data that you export as a JSON to a Mongo database. It's literally like 6 lines of code. But we'll see. I didn't do that. I have because I've never taught these particular pieces of software before, my sense of how long this is going to take you is very vague. So I think we may have lots of spare time or we may not. If we have lots of spare time, I will add things so that it's not, but I won't add them for points. Does that make sense? When I consider that the syllabus is sort of a contract and it's unfair to add work in the middle of it, but we'll add things for your own knowledge. Does that make sense? So let's go to assignments. We'll talk about them. Although one of the ways to look at assignments might be better to look at it through modules. And let me do one other thing, because I have a view that is not your view. I'm going to go to student view. Okay. So these modules are kind of what we'll be working on. So this is just getting set up. And this setup overview right here is basically about installing Postgres and setting up the databases that we'll be using. Okay, we're going to do that in class today also, I hope. But that's what this is about. These are ones that are provided by Canvas, or by the school's version of Canvas anyway. So there's Canvas tutorials, there's how to get help with Canvas, and there's how to take screenshots, because some of my assignments require screenshots, because I don't necessarily want you to turn in the database. All right. And then we have exporting and importing, and we have export JSON and import, and probably I'll link in the videos that go with these to the module. They're not there now, but I'll link them. They're already there in the video list, but they're not there. And then in Tableau, we're going to create 3 different reports. Each one has a little bit greater degree of sophistication. I'm a little bit vague on what we're doing with these different reports, because I want you to be able to explore Tableau and add, learn it as deeply as you have time for. The main thing is to produce some reports, right? And the Tableau is neat in terms of what you can do. It's fairly easy, for instance, just to take, in one of the databases, we have a list of students and there's geographic, addresses for that. It's nationwide because it's supposed to be in like an online school. I'll show you that in a bit. But when you take, you can make a report and you can make a map, right? Where are all the students from? And it'll give you a geographical map, really with just a few clicks, and a very nice looking map at that. I mean, it's amazing what you can do with some of these things. The data warehouse is complex. So I did some links and tutorials, and we're going to build it. We're going to populate it, which actually should be, it won't let me move it because I'm in a student view. The populate would come before you do the reports. And the date is earlier, so I'm not sure why they're in this order. Data warehouses are strange for the relational database because you have to rearrange all of your data. You have to take all of the related tables and rearrange them instead of being, you create them into facts and dimensions. So you create a whole different structure based on that. And what we don't have, and one of the things that Tableau is not, is a data analytics package. So we'll make reports based on the data warehouse, but what you would really want to do, and to do this you need Python or R or actually Microsoft's Business Intelligence Suite, is to analyze the cube, do multi-dimensional statistical analysis. That's what a data warehouse is for, and we don't really have the tools for that set up here. But we could talk about it, and we could possibly try to do it with Python. It's not going to be an assignment, but if we have time, we could play with that.
Would the difficulty come from having to be more explicit about the mathematics behind it in Python as opposed to R, which.
Actually, so Python has some pretty good built-in libraries.
Okay.
You can actually just say, I want to apply a linear regression without writing the math.
Oh, okay.
R actually is more mathematical. I mean, R looks like you're writing equations.
Yeah.
R is supposed to be better at the statistical analysis, and Python is supposed to be better at some of the other types of analysis. And they usually in the reviews, it's, you know, whichever one you're more comfortable with. They both do mostly the same things. And Python is slowly winning out the battle, I think, because it's more readable and more accessible than R, which is, as I said, it's like writing algebra. Also, we have Python on here and not R.
Yeah.
Now, there's a final and a midterm, and these will probably be just multiple. I say probably because there's nothing in them now, if you look. There probably be multiple choice and mostly just a review of concepts. And I usually, when I do multiple choice, I usually give you 3 shots because it's one of the things is that I found from my own experience taking tests, if you get the wrong answer, that's what you remember. You remember the wrong answer, not the right answer as you go forward. So if you have a chance to correct it so you end up with the right answer, you're more likely to remember the correct things as you go forward. So those are the things we're going to be doing. Question? You're just stretching? I will add videos, as I said, as we go along. I may adjust the statements, the writing around some of the assignments. I've been working on this for a while, but, you know, as I said, I haven't taught this before this way. The concepts I've taught before, but I always did them before with SQL Server. And the main complaint with SQL Server is that it was only worked on Windows, which drove some people crazy who had Macs and other things. And the other thing was that it was a pretty heavy install. SQL Server, because the stuff that we're doing can only be done with the SQL Server Enterprise. So it was a fairly large install, fairly complex. And a lot of people had trouble with the install because with the Enterprise version, they assume that you're a database expert and know what you're doing. So there are lots of questions that people didn't know how to answer. Questions on any of this so far? Yeah. Yeah.
If there's 2 copies, you want us to put one on the machine on here and one on
That's entirely up to you. There should be a copy of Tableau on here. I don't think I would put your other copy on here. So they are giving you 2 copies?
Yeah.
Okay, good. They did that for me too, and I kind of regret where I put them. I put one on my home machine and I put one in my office. I probably shouldn't have done it on the home machine because I don't have, although I could buy one. I don't have a microphone on my home machine, so I can't make a video there. My laptop does, but it's on Linux. So.
A question about warehouse.
Yeah.
Will the ULM ever be a part of the warehouse?
You mean the UML? You could use it for that. We'll do it mostly as I'll show you an ERD, entity relation diagram, which there is a UML version of that, which I didn't show you, but and you can also do things like, although we're not necessarily going to do that, use cases are really useful in terms of figuring out what you're doing. Like the reporting too, it would be really useful to know what, if you were to analyze what reports you want and need, use cases are really useful for that. We're mostly just going to go in there and play with the software and get as many and best reports that we can. Okay. Are these due? So I have these for today, import and export. Well, if the other thing I want to say is don't pay strict attention to my dates. we'll see what happens. um, again, it's guesswork how long these things will take. So let's see. I'm trying to think of what else I might want to cover here. Now, the first plan was to download the virtual machine and then do an install on that. But we don't have a virtual machine. So the question is, I do want to install. Let's bring that back up. Let's go to Postgres. So I'm typing in PostgreSQL. I always pronounce it Postgres. I don't know, it could be Postgres, some French pronunciation. I don't know. I'm not sure what the GRE is in there. I should find out why they named it what they did. A couple of things I will say about Postgres. It's been around, as I said, for like 30 years. It's older than MySQL. It's even older than SQL Server. It has always been open source. It's always been free. People went to MySQL more than it, particularly for the web, because MySQL did a lot of shortcuts. The original versions of MySQL for the web didn't even enforce foreign keys. They didn't enforce relational integrity at all. The newer versions of MySQL do, but there's still, MySQL was written to become a back end for a web page. It was never written to be a fully featured relational database. Postgres was. It was from the very beginning. They were trying to catch the full ANSI scope, American National Standards Institute scope of SQL, and they were attempting to do a lot of other things, some of which we're not going to look into. But there are things you can do, like you can take any table and turn it into an object. And so it was an attempt to also be an object-oriented database. It was early to adopt letting you do things in JSON as well as SQL and XML. And also, you can write functions in Python or in C or in lots of other languages. Again, we're not going to do most of those things, but those are all incorporated into it. It's an extremely full-featured database. But one reason why it was less popular, two reasons, actually. Until not too long ago, the interface, the almost only interface was command line, right? And I've talked to people who worked on Postgres, and they basically have no respect for anything except the command line. But the admin here is pretty good, and we're going to use the admin. We might use the command line for some things. And the other thing is that because it has so many features, it's a little bit more complicated than, say, something like MySQL. So I want to kind of download this, but I think you're all going to need me to log in for you. We are going to go, so this is PostgreSQL, right? And the site is just postgresql.org. And you don't, so if you're going to do it on your own machine, you could download it to your own machine, right? Or you can do both. You can have it on the Windows machine here and your own machine. Notice that it has all the different operating systems and how to install if you want. It's actually easier on Windows, and I think on the Mac, although Macs are alien to me. I'm pretty good at Linux and I'm pretty good at Windows, but Macs I don't know very well. But it has all the different Linux distributions, the Mac, Solaris, and Windows. we want Windows for these. And we will do the most recent version. So we want to download the installer. What I don't know is if it will let you run. So we want this one, Windows 11.4, 8664. And you can do the Mac one too, you know, if you've got a Mac. And it's downloading. And when we run it, we'll just say to run it. And I think rather than try to run to every machine, I will just share my password and change it tomorrow. Again, if you're doing it on your machine, you don't need to know my password. Okay, it looks like, well, I'll show you in a second. I'm going to do open. Such a deep sigh. You have to go a little farther. So go to Windows. And then download the installer. And then download.
If you do it on here, put in the virtual machine.
There's no virtual machine ready, so we're just going to install it on the underlying machine. I asked David if it was okay with him, and he said yes.
Okay.
All right, so you guys at this point need permission.
Yeah.
All right, so I started that, but I need to get up for permission. I don't want to run around and type it into everybody's. Let's see if I can do. So it's S. Conger. Did I have a 1? I think I had a 1 on it. Does that work? Yeah. All right. So I will change my password after we're done. It was a dumb password anyway. So I need to find where my installer is. And
I noticed there was a 4 option and like
there's what?
like when you click next.
Right, so you want to let it go where it's going, right?
It's not taking the password. Capital one.
No, not a capital one. I'll show it again in a moment. Yeah, we want all of these.
Oh, what about the stack here?
We actually probably don't need it, but we can let it
Okay.
be. We do want the command line, and we do want the pgadmin4, and we want the server. The stack builder, it should be okay. If it fails, we'll know that we shouldn't have done that. But. So I will do next and next. Now, if you get to this password part, it's really important that you not forget your password. I suggest password. Be at SSW0RD1. I wouldn't suggest that for a production, by the way.
Do we want all the components?
Do we want? Yeah, go ahead with all of them. So, because it is a real pain to recover the password if you forget it. It is possible, but it's a pain. It involves some fairly deep command line search. So password 1 is my suggestion. You can use a different password if you want, but you're on your own if you screw up. It wasn't an 80. So
Yeah, good discussion.
Yeah. Maybe not. So I think the password is, so if your user is Postgres, there is no password. Yeah, you might want to- if it works, yeah, it should be, if it's working. No, you're fine. If you downloaded this last time, for a different class, it's fine. You don't need to do it again. You're welcome to, but you don't need to.
There'll be a difference between the versions.
None that will matter a whole lot to us. There are differences. They've added some things. They've actually improved the ability to do my brain is gone. The ability for stored procedures. So in the past, you had to do just a function, and what made it a stored procedure is a returned void. Now you can actually declare it as a procedure, and yeah.
We use the default port number, right?
Yes, use the default port. Let me see about people that are having trouble logging in.
Oh, no. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just like, well, if it's something right, me or so. Yeah, this is a while ago, so it's probably not like it's a key, which makes sense. Like, like something went wrong. It's just like okay.
I should even look at it.
Yeah,
Something about
So once you've got the password in here, you can do next. Right, and there is a video on doing this. Default port. We don't need any advanced. Okay, so these are all the things that it's going to install. And that's fine. And then I'm just going to start installing. Hopefully yours will install.
It's as Conger, right?
As Conger, yeah.
It's my laptop, a patch of my lap has one. Your password. My lap.
And make it capital P. Capital L, capital P. Sad thing is I have to think of a new password.
That is a good one though. Just make it two.
Make it two. Yeah. Particularly after sharing with everyone, David would be upset if I just did a 2, I think.
Yeah.
It's hard though, because it requires, you have to have a non-alphanumeric character, you have to have capitals and lowercase, and you have to have numbers. And it has to be at least 8 characters.
Pretty standard.
It is pretty standard. And all of the security documents I've read said it's useless. That you're better off with just English, but if you do like a sentence, a short sentence or something.
It still says I have no account.
Oh,
Give me a minute.
the user is not connected.
What, that one is not connected?
Yeah, because like I tried using FTMS too.
Finish it, install it, it's going to, like,
Oh, those things you can ignore. So you can cancel those. Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
No, you're fine. If you have one already. Okay, so we'll have to talk. What message are you getting? I'm wondering if you're not. So it may not be your account. May be perfectly fine. Maybe the computer's not counted.
Yeah.
No, it may not be connected to the. I can have David fix it. Yeah, so it's not you. It's the computer. So we can move to a different computer or.
We should have always supposed to have.
So there's a couple up here that might be able to, although if you have a place.
Only because he can also contact the company.
All right, let me go back to the install. So there's a last little bit of the install, if I can find where we are.
Sorry for disappointing.
Yeah. Well, so I think you've already done it. Are you installing it again? Oh, no, it doesn't really update it, just installs it. I mean, the one you have, if you have an earlier version, so say you have 10, it's fine. For what we're going to do, the version doesn't matter as long as it's greater than 9 something. Yeah, well, I mean, the thing is that there have been changes after 9, but I'm not even sure they distribute anything other than when we did it last time, it was 10, right? That was the distribution. Now it's 11. The stack builder we could have left off. When you get to the stack builder, it comes here, and it wants to know if you want to install additional things. We don't need any of these additions. But these are just additional, they're all add-ons. And if you open them up, you can see what some of those add-ons are. You know, it has the PG agent, which actually would be kind of good for the other class, although I don't have anything that actually is using it. The Postgres agent is a scheduling tool. It basically allows you to schedule backups and restores and things like that. You know, so it's a scheduling tool for that. I actually have no idea what the PG bouncer is. It has some other drivers, and these are mostly for writing to other programs. JDBC is for talking to Java
when a
programs.
user has done one too many queries, the PG bouncer tells them what's up.
That may be,
Or,
or doesn't let you in if you don't have the.
right.
I don't know what let's look at the database server. What would they have there? Oh, so if you want an earlier version of the server, these are things that cost money. Replication solutions, some of those could be good. Web development, I'm just curious. Apache, so you can download Apache. So that would be a web server, and things. I would do it separately from this, I think, but I had spatial extensions. I suspect that those are for if you were using this as a background for a GPS, something, right? So you needed latitude and longitude type things. So there are all these things that are kind of neat, and we don't need any of them, so I'm going to cancel that. I did. So no, it didn't cancel the whole thing. So I am going to, I guess I should keep the zoom up. I'm going to go here to the Windows, and I'm going to go, we have Postgres 11 now, and I'm going to hit the PG admin 4, and hopefully it will install. Now, question, I think it's going to do it by launching Edge, because it'll go with the default browser. Is it doing that for you guys, or do you?
Yeah, it just popped into the Edge.
Okay. So if this works without the virtual machine, in a way, that's a nice thing. The virtual machines are a pain in the butt. All right, so the master password is the password that you entered before. Macs don't behave this way for some reason. Macs come up with the default password. And it's a bit of a pain to change the password, just to let you know. So my password was p@ssw0rd1. And I'm going to give you just a little bit of a tour, and we'll do a little bit of, and then, so there's the server password, and then there's the database, which in this case is the same. So let me maximize this, and let me make this a little smaller. Okay. So this is what the front end looks like. Since version 4, they have been doing web front ends. Despite the fact that it is a web-based front end, it is local, right? It's not out on the web somewhere. So it's a local thing. Weirdly, for those that are interested, this is written. PG admin is written in Python. So we have some databases. Right now we've only got one database, which is the Postgres database. This is the system database. Relational databases always have a system database that keeps track of all the meta information about other databases. Generally, you don't want to mess with the system databases, because if you do, typically what it means is that your database admin thing won't work anymore. We have some logins, and we have some table spaces, which we're not going to worry too much about. If you're in the other class, we'll play with the table space. The other class will play with a lot more of these things, actually. It has a dashboard, which it kind of lets you know what's going on. You can look at the properties of whatever's selected. So these are the properties of the server. It will output any SQL if there's anything to output, right? So you can actually have it generate some SQL for you there. It has some stats. We don't have any dependencies, and because of that, we also don't have any dependents. There are a lot of things that only happen. So you have file up here. So you can reset the layout, which sometimes is useful. These windows float, and if you accidentally start them floating, it's real hard to get them back. And so resetting the layout can be good. You can also lock the layout if you want. Floating is nice. I mean, being able to float these windows if you have multiple monitors, which I wish I had. So you could put the the query window in one and the stats in another, and then you can. It could be useful. Objects like create. Here you can create a database. You could create a new server. You can create a login group thing or a table space. Table spaces are logical disk spaces. So one of the things you could do with table spaces that's not really relevant to this class is you could put a database across multiple disks. Does that make sense? So like if you had a RAID system, that's something you could set that up there. Tools, there are, the query tool is the one we will use the most. I'll show you how to set that up in a bit. And then there's help, which basically just takes you to online documentation. So the other thing you'll see is that PG Admin 4, they seem to update it about every 2 days. So before long, we'll probably get little messages here saying, you're using version 4 point whatever. But the newest version is, and we can ignore that if we, or you can update it if you want. Okay.
Steve, could you clarify? You said you could create a server.
So Postgres 11 is a server. So like on my machine at home, I have 9, 10, and 11 versions of the server. And typically, now sometimes when you install this, you have to actually, this came up with the databases and the server. Sometimes it doesn't. And you have to right-click on here and create a server. You can also create, so I'm going to right-click on here. So you can create a server. You can create a database. I think you could actually create actually that's server. Let's do it up above. You could create a server group. We're not going to do that again. But it's not uncommon, particularly in an enterprise situation, to have a cluster of servers. And a server group is essentially that, a cluster of servers that talk to each other. And then you could configure the log sharing and things like that so that they stay in sync. It's a little bit beyond what we're going to do, but it has those features. Or you could add a server. Now, if I added a server, we've only got one actually running, but we could give it different names if we wanted. Does that make sense? So it could be logically different servers, even though physically it's the same. The other thing I'll say about this, which could be relevant, particularly on your laptop, is this runs as a Windows service on Windows. I'm not sure how it does on Mac. So if it stops running, you guys know where to locate services? I've never had it stop running on the desktop, but it does sometimes in a virtual machine and in a laptop, and I think it's because if resources are tight. If you go to computer management, and if you go to, and I can help you again with this if you need, services and applications, services, and let's go down to, they're in alphabetical order. So there's Postgres, and notice it's running, and it's on automatic. Automatic means that it starts running, and it stays running. You can turn this off, like if you were running low on resources, you could turn this to manual, so you have to manually turn it on. But as it is, it automatically starts when the computer starts. I show you this mostly just in case if it doesn't, it says the server isn't there. It may be because it's shut off. And it doesn't happen very often, but sometimes on a laptop where your resources are tight, the Windows will make a kind of a triage, and it sometimes shuts it off. Not that that's particularly relevant to this program, but this is the core of Windows. Windows is a service-oriented architecture. These are all services running Windows. You can turn them on and off, but if you don't know what you're doing, you can kill Windows. This is a dangerous dialog box. Not only the services, but it also has the disk management where you can, and actually you guys might not be able to see some of these. I was just thinking you guys don't have admin permission, so you might not be able
Well,
to
you
see
do
this.
today.
No, you don't actually. You
Oh.
only had the admin permissions for the install.
Oh, okay.
Other than that, you're back on your own.
Mm.
Which is actually, so we want to make sure that everything works. I just wanted to show, this is a really dangerous dialog box, but it allows you to manage everything about Windows in there. But again, if you totally screw up, you could have to reinstall. Okay, so there's one other thing I want to do today for sure to set this up. And then we could actually look at the assignments if you want. I'm not going to say that they need to be done today, though. I'll just show them. Even though I said that they were due today. So if you need to leave, don't worry about it. I'm going to do it pretty soon. What time do you have to leave? 11:30? 11:20. If not, there are 2 videos. And I did a video for each part of it. And I'll probably re-record it now, although this video may get rather long. So maybe I'll stop it and start a new video before we do those. I wonder if I should do that now. Do you guys want to have one really long video or break it up? Okay, so let me stop it. And then we'll start again, because, whoa. All right, one of those is real. I'm going to zoom down again so I can see better.